Paradrama Tales. The birthday that broke something in me. It was supposed to be a celebration. Candles, laughter, the people I loved most. But the moment I saw the man who shattered my childhood standing there with a gift bag, I realized this wasn't a party. It was a betrayal in wrapping paper. She told me she had dinner plans for us. Nothing fancy. Just the two of us, like most of my birthdays since I turned 20. I didn't expect much. I never do. But when we pulled into a quiet little side street and she walked me toward an event space I'd never seen before, I started to feel something different. Her hand was warm in mine, and she was smiling nervously. The kind of smile you wear when you're hoping someone will love what you've done for them. She opened the door. Lights flashed. Surprise! I blinked, overwhelmed for a moment. There were streamers, balloons, music playing softly in the background, and people, so many people. My friends, co-workers, even my mom and sister standing near the back. Everyone cheering, laughing, waiting for my reaction. I turned toward her. She looked proud. She said quietly, "Happy birthday, babe. I wanted to do something special for you." And I believed her. For a moment, I actually felt seen, cared for, appreciated in a way that went beyond words. I hugged a few friends, thanked them for coming. I could feel the pressure in my chest start to ease. I was even a little touched. She's not usually the party planning type. But she had gone out of her way, rented this cozy space, arranged catering, got music. I could tell this had taken effort. Then I looked over her shoulder and saw him, the man I hadn't seen in over 10 years. The man who once stood at our front door and said, "I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore," before walking out on my mother, my sister, and me. The man who broke everything. He was standing there with a gift bag, smiling like nothing had ever happened. And suddenly the warmth drained from the room. My chest tightened again, but not in a good way. Everything slowed. The music, the chatter, even the air. He took a step forward and said, "Happy birthday, son. I've missed you." I didn't answer. I couldn't. People were watching, some smiling, some awkward. And I realized this wasn't a surprise. This was orchestrated, deliberate, planned. And she, my girlfriend, had known. She'd invited him. She'd brought him into a room full of people, wrapped him in a bow, and presented him like a gift. I looked around at the faces that had been so joyful just moments before, and all I could feel was betrayal closing in from every side. So I did the only thing that made sense. I turned and walked out, without a word, without an explanation, because nothing about this was for me. It wasn't a celebration. It was a test I never agreed to take. When I was 15, my world shattered. My father had an affair with my mother's best friend. The betrayal was not just personal. It was a seismic event that upended our entire family. One day, he was there, a constant presence in our lives. The next, he was gone, leaving behind a trail of broken trust and unanswered questions. The aftermath was devastating. My mother, once vibrant and full of life, plunged into a deep depression. She struggled to get out of bed, to eat, to care for herself, let alone for my younger sister and me. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, became a place of silence and sorrow. I had to grow up overnight. At 15, I became the de facto head of the household. I cooked meals, helped my sister with her homework, and tried to keep the semblance of a normal life. But inside I was a mess, angry, confused, and heartbroken. The financial strain was immense. We lost our home and had to move into a small apartment. The stability and security I had known were gone, replaced by uncertainty and fear. I watched my mother struggle to make ends meet, to provide for us, all while battling her own demons. My father's absence was a constant ache. He reached out a few times over the years, birthday cards, occasional phone calls, but I ignored them all. I couldn't forgive him for the pain he caused, for the family he destroyed. The emotional scars ran deep. I developed trust issues, always fearing that those I loved would leave me. I kept people at arm's length, afraid to let anyone get too close. The fear of abandonment became a constant companion. So, when I walked into that surprise party and saw him standing there, smiling as if nothing had happened, it felt like a cruel joke. The man who had caused so much pain, who had left us to pick up the pieces of our shattered lives, was now being presented as a gift. It wasn't just a surprise, it was a betrayal. My girlfriend, knowing the pain he had caused, had invited him into my life without my consent. She had orchestrated a reunion I never wanted, reopening wounds that had barely begun to heal. In that moment, all the pain, anger, and heartbreak came rushing back. I felt like that 15-year-old boy again, watching his world fall apart. I couldn't stay. I had to leave, to protect myself from reliving the trauma. My father's actions had long-lasting effects, not just on our family, but on who I became. The man who left us in pieces had no right to re-enter my life on someone else's terms. Healing is a personal journey, and forgiveness can't be forced. It has to come from within, in its own time. It didn't register right away. The room was full of movement, music, laughter, raised glasses, that chaotic buzz of a surprise party just after the yell. I was still adjusting, still smiling through the shock, when my eyes swept across the room and locked onto a face I hadn't seen in over a decade. And for a moment, I genuinely thought I was hallucinating. He stood there, near the dessert table, holding a shiny gift bag. Like he had every right to be there. Like this was normal. It was him. The man who left a crater in our lives and never came back to fill it. The man who watched our family unravel and never once offered a stitch of repair. My father. I couldn't move. He saw me and lit up, took a step forward with this open-armed, too eager smile. "Happy birthday, son. I've missed you." The word son hit me like a slap. He hadn't earned that word in years. He gave it up the day he walked out that door and never looked back. He moved in for a hug, and instinctively I took a step back. And then, just silence. My mind emptied out. I could feel eyes on me. Not just his, but everyone else's too. Some guests smiling softly like they were waiting for a reunion. Others looked curious. A few looked uncomfortable. And then I realized some of them knew. They were expecting this. This wasn't a surprise. It was a spectacle. I glanced at my girlfriend standing by the door. She wasn't smiling anymore, just watching me with wide eyes, almost like she was nervous now. Because maybe she'd expected tears. Maybe she thought I'd break down and thank her for giving me closure. Instead, I was frozen. And underneath that, furious. My pulse roared in my ears. I didn't say a word. I didn't make a scene. I just turned, walked out the door, got into my car, and drove. I left everything, the cake, the people, the decorations, because I couldn't breathe in that room. I couldn't bear the fact that my pain had been put on display for everyone to watch like some emotional reconciliation episode. It wasn't her story to write. It wasn't her moment to orchestrate. And as I drove away from that party, all I could think was, how many people did she tell? How many people knew I was about to be ambushed and said nothing? The second I stepped out of that room, the cold air hit me like a gasp of relief I didn't know I needed. But it didn't help. My chest was tight, my jaw clenched, my hands were shaking. I got in my car and slammed the door shut. The party lights still flickered in the rearview mirror, and for a moment, I just sat there staring through the windshield like the world had blurred out in front of me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't say a word. Because what do you say when someone you love plans your betrayal with streamers and cake? I turned the key and started driving. No destination, just away. Away from the decorations, the whispered conversations, and especially away from the man who used to be my father. I couldn't even put music on. The silence was loud enough. It was supposed to be a celebration. And it turned into a full-blown emotional ambush. The worst part? I wasn't just angry, I was humiliated. Because in those few seconds when I saw him, I felt something I hated. I felt small again. Like that 15-year-old kid watching his family fall apart in real time, powerless to stop it, forced to grow up overnight, and left to sweep up the emotional debris someone else left behind. That kid had promised himself one thing: he doesn't get to come back. Not ever. And yet, there he was, invited, welcomed, given a second chance he didn't earn. Not by me, but by someone I trusted. I kept replaying it in my head, the way she looked at me as I walked in. That proud, hopeful expression, like she thought she had done something brave, like this was a gift. But it wasn't a gift. It was a wound reopened. And all I could think was, how many people did she tell about my pain and spin it like a redemption arc? I drove for almost an hour. No calls, no texts, just space. Just breathe. Because inside that room, I couldn't breathe. And the truth is, I wasn't just walking out of a party. I was walking out of something deeper. Out of the illusion that the people closest to you always know what's best. Out of the belief that good intentions automatically mean safe choices. I had trusted her with the most fragile part of my history, and she turned it into a surprise. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch in my apartment, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling in the dark, while the echo of that moment replayed again and again. My phone buzzed. First a few texts, then a missed call from her, then more messages from mutual friends. But I couldn't bring myself to respond. I needed time. I needed clarity. I needed to understand how the person I loved could do something so invasive. By morning, I had answers, and they hurt even more than the silence. She'd known everything. Not just the vague outline of my dad leaving the family, but the full story. She knew about the affair with my mom's best friend. She knew we lost our home. She knew about my mom's breakdown. The days she couldn't get out of bed. The months I spent holding the family together on nothing but instinct and fear. She knew that my father had tried to contact me, and that I never responded. Not once in over 10 years. I had told her all of it. Late at night. On walks. Over dinner. I trusted her with that story. The way you trust someone who sees you at your most vulnerable and doesn't flinch. And now I realized she hadn't just heard it. She had filed it away like a plan waiting to be executed. She called me again that morning. I answered. I wish I hadn't. I was trying to do something beautiful, she said, her voice cracking. You don't understand. Your mom and sister said it might be okay if handled gently. Gently? I asked. You lured me into a room with the one man who hurt us the most, and you call that gentle? He wanted to apologize. I didn't want to hear it. She sighed, exasperated. But you never gave him the chance. Sometimes people just need closure. That word again, closure. As if it's a ribbon you tie around a box of pain and suddenly everything heals. As if years of abandonment and betrayal can be cured by a single surprise reunion. I told her this wasn't her story to resolve. That forgiveness isn't a group project. That healing only works when it's done on your own terms. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She just said, you ruined something I worked so hard to make special. And that was when I knew. She didn't plan that party for me. She planned it for the version of me she wanted to believe in, the one who was ready to forgive, to forget, to perform healing for a crowd. But that wasn't me. That's never been me. I didn't expect everyone to take my side, but I also didn't expect so many to think I was the villain. Within a day, the texts started rolling in, not just from her, but from our mutual friends, some of whom had been at the party, some of whom had known. The tone wasn't outright cruel, it was worse. It was condescendingly concerned. She was just trying to do something kind, man. You should be grateful she cares that much. Your dad looked crushed. He really came there with love. It was like I'd been dropped into someone else's story, where I was the bitter son, clinging to a grudge, unwilling to move on. And the girlfriend? The selfless peacemaker, misunderstood but noble in her efforts. No one mentioned how hard it is to be blindsided in a room full of people. No one mentioned what it feels like to have your pain packaged as a surprise gift. Instead, they framed it as my failure, my failure to forgive, to perform the healing they were all expecting. I got a message from one of her friends, someone I barely even know, that said, "You'll regret this one day. He's still your father. She gave you a chance to be a man about it." A man? Is that what this was? A test of my masculinity wrapped in cake and candles? Because if being a man means ignoring a decade of abandonment and smiling for the sake of optics, I'll pass. Then came the guilt. She told me my mom and sister were on board, that they approved, that they even helped coordinate in small ways under the promise that it would be gentle, tasteful, healing, and I don't blame them. Because when I spoke to my sister later, she said it plainly. She told us you knew, that this was something you wanted. You just didn't know how to make it happen. That sentence hit harder than anything else. My mom said she stayed at the party because she didn't want to cause a scene. My sister left right after me. Both of them were livid, not just at my girlfriend, but at themselves. Because they let it happen, because they didn't stop it, because they believed her. That's the worst part of manipulation wrapped in good intentions. It makes people doubt what they know and ignore the alarms in their gut. So yes, people cared. But their version of care came with conditions. Be gracious. Be forgiving. Be grateful. Grateful that someone else decided the timing for your healing. Grateful that the pain you buried was unearthed for the sake of a spectacle. This wasn't just a party gone wrong. This wasn't just a well-intentioned mistake. It was something deeper, something colder, something that cut in a way most people didn't see. Because at the core of it, what hurt the most was that she took my story, my pain, my history, my healing, and decided it was hers to shape. She knew the damage. She knew what my father's absence did to me, to my sister, to my mother. She had held me during nights when I talked about how I never got to be a kid, how I resented being forced into adulthood before I was ready. She had heard all of it. And still, she took that story and rewrote the ending without me. She saw my trauma as a puzzle she could solve, a chapter she could close with the right mix of candles, confetti, and surprise reunions. But healing doesn't work like that. Closure isn't a gift someone hands you. It's a private process, quiet and uneven, and most of all, earned. She didn't just invite him. She took the most painful part of my life and decided it was time for it to end. Not when I was ready, but when she felt it would make a beautiful moment. That's what I can't shake. She wanted a storybook ending. The son reconciles with the estranged father. The family heals. The crowd applauds. She probably pictured me in tears, embracing the man who abandoned me and thanking her for bringing us back together. But this isn't a movie, and I'm not a prop in someone else's feel-good production. The truth is, it takes an incredible amount of trust to let someone into your past, to unpack the wounds you've carried, to explain why they're still tender after all this time. And what she did wasn't just insensitive, it was a betrayal of that trust. Because the pain I shared wasn't a confession. It wasn't an invitation to fix me. It was an offering, raw and unguarded, because I believed she would hold it with care. Instead, she weaponized it. She used my silence as consent. She told people I was ready when I never said that. She assumed that love means taking the lead in someone else's healing, when in fact, real love walks beside you, never in front. So no, I'm not cruel. I'm not immature. I'm not ungrateful. I'm just someone who knows that forgiveness isn't owed. It's chosen. And mine was taken from me, packaged as a surprise, and handed back like I should smile and say thank you. It's been days now, and I still haven't called her back. The texts have slowed, the calls are less frequent, and yet not once has she said the one word I keep waiting to hear. Sorry. Not, I'm sorry I hurt you. Not, I should have listened. Not even, I didn't realize what this would cost us. Instead, every message I've read feels like a defense, a justification, a rerun of the same theme. I was trying to do something good and you ruined it. And maybe that's what stings the most. Because even now, even after all this, she still believes her version of love, controlling, assumptive, and wrapped in emotional spectacle, was the right kind. I've gone over every conversation we had in the weeks before the party. Every moment she looked me in the eyes while I told her about the man who broke my family. I wonder if she ever really listened, or if she was too busy planning a scene she thought would redeem him and her. We live in the same apartment. Technically, she's been staying with a friend, and I haven't asked her to come back. Not because I want to punish her, but because I'm finally admitting to myself that this wasn't just one bad decision. It was a window into something bigger. The way she believes love gives her permission to cross boundaries, to fix things she doesn't understand, to call the shots in someone else's healing and expect applause when it backfires. I loved her. I still do in some quiet, bruised way. But now, I don't know if I can ever trust her again. Because how do you rebuild something with someone who doesn't understand why it broke? The house is quiet now. I've gone back to my routine, gone back to work. But there's a weight in my chest I haven't been able to shake. Not just sadness, but grief for what we were, and for what I know we'll probably never be again. I've thought about picking up the phone. I've even held it in my hand a few times, staring at her name, wondering if I'm being too harsh, too cold, too unforgiving. But then I remember that night, the look on his face, the silence in the room, the applause she expected, and I realize I'm not the one who walked away first. She did. The moment she decided my story wasn't mine anymore. Forgiveness isn't a moment. It's not a room full of people waiting for a hug. It's not a cake, a camera, or a carefully planned gesture wrapped in someone else's timeline. Forgiveness, when it's real, is slow. It's quiet. It begins where pain is honored, not ignored. And it only grows when the person who was hurt feels safe, heard, and in control of their own story. That didn't happen at my birthday. What happened was something a lot of people mistake for love. Control disguised as care. Good intentions used as a mask for manipulation. Healing forced like a performance, with an audience ready to clap for a reconciliation that never came. And the truth is, I might forgive my dad one day, or I might not. But if I do, it won't be because someone else decided I was ready. It'll be because I chose it. That's what so many people forget. You can love someone and still cross a line they can't walk back from. You can mean well, and still cause real harm. My girlfriend thought she was doing something beautiful, but beauty without consent isn't kindness. It's a show, and I wasn't ready to perform. So if you're watching this and someone has ever told you to just move on, or that you're holding a grudge, or that you should be grateful someone forced a reunion you weren't ready for, let this be your reminder. Your pain is real. Your timing matters, and you don't owe closure to anyone who didn't stay to see the damage. Forgiveness isn't a surprise party. It's a door you open, not one someone else kicks in. So take your time, hold your boundary, and know that healing isn't a performance. It's yours, and you don't have to share the stage with anyone who never earned their way back. If this story moved you or reminded you of something in your own life, drop a comment. You're not alone, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply walk away.